Hello, this is Dr. Bob O, and we're going to launch a brand new series on this channel. We're going to study philosophy today. Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to talk about metaphysics of East and West. Well, let's start with the clapping. Yeah, that's how I start. Well, my lecture, at least for the YouTube audience, would be not really information driven, but more inspiration, and there'll be impartation. The whole focus is not to learn about philosophy, because come on, you could get that plenty, but become a philosopher. And actually, this is a class note that actually I taught 3 years ago at Royal University of Phnom Penh. I'm a lecturer there, professor of philosophy, and so, but I'm not representing RUPP at this point. Legally, I cannot. So, but the fact that I taught that 3 years ago is just a fact. So I'm just stating that for future complication, if there is any. But anyways, the question we always ask each other is, who are you? Or what do you do for a living? Or they pass out the name card, and it says doctor, lawyer, engineer, business, CEO, CFO, COO, whatever. And somehow we think that that's who we are. But so the difference that I'm going to cover in this lecture, and you know what? Go get yourself some pause and go get yourself some coffee. Because I don't think I could do this in 12 minutes. And if you really want to learn what metaphysics is, or philosophy is, what does it mean to be a philosopher? Man, invest some time. And I'm gonna be very frank with you and share from my heart, and hopefully that'll inspire you to become a philosopher. You don't have to know any philosophy. You don't have to have a brain to, absorb 2,000 years of philosophical debates and discourse and all that kind of stuff. You just have to make a commitment to live as a philosopher, and that's my point. So the question that we should ask is not who are you, but more fundamental question, why are you? Why do you exist? Why do you live? And ask the question to yourself, not because the moment you ask, who am I? I make such and such, I graduate from science, but from that layer, you need to go down and say, but why are you, right? That distinguish from an average Joe to a philosopher. Even you are a philosophy major, even you could be a philosophy professor, but if you don't know why you are, then you haven't really learned the trade well. So that's my point. Why? Let's gonna talk about that. Well, let me share with you why I am, from my story. I could only tell my story. I don't know who you are and what you do and why are you, but I could share why I am from my perspective. Of course, I'm the writer of Honda VTX 1300. This is the coolest picture that I could find about myself. And even my YouTube TV logo picture is that cool picture with a bunch of my friends. But why am I? Well, I was born 1961. And my father was a medical doctor. My mom was housemaker, homemaker, and 5 children. I was the cutest one. Yeah, 막내 power, the last child power. The family of 5, we started growing. And then 1973, my parents decided to immigrate to America. In California, home of about 18 million people. 1973, I was 12 years old. Came to America, the cutest one in the family. And I came as a Korean and became Korean American. In the technical term or theological term, Professor Hwa Young said, "Are you mango or banana?" Well, I guess after 40 plus years, I became yellow outside, white inside. That was my marriage, 1984. Wow. Why am I? This is a cool picture from 1991 to 2014. I had this gangster look. I planted 5 churches in LA, and then I tried to be like Jesus, and then went back. And we had several hamsters who died, but we kept 2 rabbits. My children are all grown, wonderful, beautiful children. One's the filmmaker, USC grad, film school, son, occupation therapist. Patty, my last one, works at university as American Sign Language person, works at admin office. Of course, I married an angel many years ago. Well, why am I? What have I done? Well, typical Asian. Sorry, I have to talk about your education history. Well, I did my BA, 1979, entered Berkeley, studied philosophy, right? Well, if we're gonna skip that a little bit, you could learn about Berkeley, 1970. To be is to be seen. Okay, that's the Bishop George Berkeley, the founder of UC Berkeley, said, to be is to be seen. Whew, okay. So the whole philosophical department, of course, is bent toward existentialistic belief. So that's how I was taught. And the book that just influenced me when I was 18, 19 was Brother Karamazov. Changed my life. I was taking an English course of, it was existentialism in literature. Brother Karamazov was one of the required reading, and I was reading that Monday morning in my dorm or in my apartment, and I couldn't put it down. For 5 days, I skipped all lectures, all classes, 5 days. I finished that book in 5 days, and I mean, wow. And I really became an existentialist without even thinking about it. And because I identify with Alyosha, please, if you have not read that book, please read it, and 3 brothers, Dimitri, Ivan, and Alyosha. Dimitri represent the body, Alyosha intellect, Ivan intellect, Alyosha the spirit. And the greatest sinner is the spirit. And so, anyways. And then when I was young, the Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, of course, as a writer, and I require all these books as a requirement course at my class at RUPP, Royal University of Phnom Penh. Then 1986 and through 90, I got my Master of Divinity. Yeah, I'm the Master of Divinity. And I learned theology, biblical Greek, and Hebrew. And then 1995 to 1998, I became a doctor of ministry, or in our circle we call demonized, demon, or are you demonized properly? That's a joke. And from Fuller I learned research method, thesis writing, and publication. And the man that really influenced me in my Berkeley years and later becomes a good friend, who now is actually in hospital because he had a little accident, and please pray for him that he could recover and get his consciousness back. But Professor Chung In Kang, and he was my college dorm mate, and now becomes the very powerful political writer, philosophy, and his book, Western Centrism and Contemporary Korean Political Thought. And so we would always have this debate, healthy debate, about how political realm also, the Western centrism has really influenced, and how theologically the Western centrism has dominated for the last 2,000 years. So I'm trying to do away with that, and not to do away, anti in a way, but both and. So I'm gonna talk about that. And really God led me to Oxford Center for Mission Study, which I was candidate until 2018. Now I'm Ph.D. properly, so I have now double doctor, call me Dr. O. It was a fantastic time at Oxford. Oxford Center for Mission Studies, the Middlesex University, campus is at Oxford, and a lot of my friends very successfully studied and defended their thesis. Now they are who's who of the theological circle. Wow, now this brother Ben, now he's the head of the Theological Seminary in Philippines. Esther got her PhD, and now she's a professor in Japan. Wow, my favorite, Chun Gui-chun 교수님, Professor Chun, he's finished, and now he's professor at Oxford Center for Mission Studies. Kirk, wow, great guy, we studied together, now he's professor at Calvin. Fantastic stuff. So at OCMS, I learned how to do case study method, patron-client, 갑배늘. That's this. They are just releasing my book, two books. One was already published, mini series on Patreon client, and the Regnum Publishing, and they just did that. And my focus was socioanthropology. And as you know, so this is different departure. I'm teaching about metaphysics, but from the social, and my PhD was from the more of a socioanthropology, because I thought when I studied Cambodia that I would study from economic perspective. I spent 3 years economic theories, and then finally, professor said, Bob, that's not economic theory. You're probably looking into socioanthropology. Oh my goodness, So I had to look into the socioanthropology, finish my PhD, and I'm very, very happy. I wrote so far 55 books, but when I was teaching at REPP, I wrote 18 books. And I wrote several poetry books, and one of them actually comes out of my philosophy. My fifth poetry book was Either Or, and this philosophy in poetry of Soren Kierkegaard. Okay, my passion for philosophy of existentialism began in 1980 at UC Berkeley. I was sitting at that place right there in the location, and then I realized I am an individual. I exist on my own. Okay, if you had that kind of thought, some of you, maybe you're really philosophically bent, and if you really struggle with your identity, like, oh, am I Korean or am I American? Oh, am I stupid or am I smart? Am I tall? Am I fat? Am I ugly? Those are the qualities, but it doesn't really talk about the existence itself. So, when theologically, when people talk about, is God good? Is God evil? Is God, benevolent? Is God omniscient, omnipotent? These are the qualities of God, but they don't really talk about the existence of God. So, but when I came to realize, hey, before essence, existence, I realized I exist as an individual. That was a breakthrough in my thinking. And so I properly became Soren Kierkegaard's disciple and realized that I am an existentialist. And my passion since 2016 at Oxford, I found Martin Buber. And so I became existentialist, and also Martin Buber was influenced by Kierkegaard. So I traveled through, visited how many countries? I realized I visited 64 countries. And now I'm in Cambodia. So I'm recording this at Phnom Penh studio, my third floor in my center here, converted into studio. And many years ago, 7 years ago, we started Cambodia Research and Resource Center. Now, I'm saying all this because I'm telling you about why I am, not who I am. Now, don't all this stuff that I've said so far, like, oh, that's what you do. No, that's not what I do. That's why I do the things I do. Okay? So why would I start Cambodia Research and Resource Center? Do I make money? No. Did someone tell you to do? No. Did organization tell you to do? No. These are stuff that I do because that's why I am. That's why I exist. I research and resource and make it available to people. So bunch of leadership got together. To be exact, 4 families got together, and then we rent a house, cost money. I spent a lot of money and start organizing big meetings and small meetings, which also cost money. We didn't make any money. We started publishing books, which cost me money, not make any money, right? And so that's why I am, right? And my success is not depending on, how big was the meeting, how successful was the book selling. No, the reason I exist, why I exist, is to do the things that God called me to do. Well, what about then? Oh, what's your real identity? Well, this will tell you. See, I'm a farmer at heart. In my heart, in my backyard in America, I started growing stuff. Oh my goodness, what joy, right? To see things grow, and wow, and then I could have all these precious, my precious, and then give it to my mom in abundance. Well, that picture was taken a few years ago, and my mom passed away last October, and I want to please her, because to her, me being a philosophy professor and revivalist, it doesn't mean much, but man, I said, Mom, look, we got jujube, corn and cucumber, and this is for you. Made her very happy. Now, 2017 August, I had students actually start. I told you I teach at RUPP, and this RUPP students, man, we became best of friends. I was their professor now. After 3 years, almost four years into it. No, wait, 8, 9, yeah, exactly 3 years. Now we're launching. We just met the other day, and now we're launching a new project. We're trying to talk about creation narratives of the Genesis from Cambodian perspective. So on, nothing means something in Khmer, and so it'll be fantastic. Oh man, I told you it's not going to be an informational metaphysics, but I want to bring inspiration to you, right? And in order to do that for me, you need to learn this Hebrew. Read that for me. Did you read it? It's read Matahosheth. Matahosheth. What does that mean? The answer is in the question. Matahosheth. What do you mean? Answer is in the question. I asked you, what do you think this means? What do you think this means, right? Well, it means, what do you think? In Hebrew, what do you think is Matahosheth? But this is very important, and this is what I use in my lecture all the time. I don't try to tell them what metaphysics is. I mean, who am I? I'm not qualified to talk about what is metaphysics. No one has figured that out yet. But what do you think metaphysics is? And what is true to you subjectively is what metaphysics to you. So the classroom setting in Korea and Jewish library. Did you know that Jewish library is the loudest, most noisiest place on campus? Because Jews, they come together and they challenge you to constantly debate, talk about issue, okay? So for example, what is metaphysics? The Jewish library, they are gonna get together and argue and talk. This is what metaphysics for me, in this perspective, in this historical perspective, this linguistic perspective, this epistemological perspective, and then argue, and they come with their own definition of metaphysics. Whereas in Korean classroom, American classroom, Cambodian classroom, wow, they will be just told what metaphysics is. So sad. This is images from Cambodian college classrooms or high school classrooms or junior high classrooms, even Buddhist monk classrooms, and it's all one way. This is what metaphysics is. You learn it, memorize it, punk. Otherwise, you don't get A, right? Well, I cannot teach anyone anything. I can only make them think. Socrates said that, right? Well, what did he mean by that? He said, Odi hoti hodi auden. In classical Greek, it means I know that I know nothing. He said that I know one thing, that I know nothing. Odi hoti odi auden. That's the spirit in which I teach. I cannot ask you to memorize stuff that I know. Then what's the point, right? That's just information. You could find that just ask Siri. Hey Siri, ask that, right? So I'm gonna talk about, this is, I credit this from wikihow.com. We should not really teach that at a Ph.D. level, but it's okay at a YouTube channel level, right? But so Sovanara, one of my students at metaphysics class said, sir, this is what I found, right? I have a gift for professor and class. Here you are. And then he said that's how he learned, through WikiHow to study metaphysics. So you could kind of go through that, not base your entire learning on that, but I mean, it will be a good preliminary study, right? Go through that, how to study metaphysics. Well, there's part one is that learn the basics. For example, if you want to learn about physics, then you have to turn to who? Albert Einstein, right? The more I learn of physics, the more I'm drawn to metaphysics. He said that, not me, right? So what he's saying is the basis of physics really is metaphysics, right? Right. The more I learn, so what is physics, right? E equals mc squared. Well, you know that, right? And Matahosheth. What do you think that means? I mean, I know that energy equals mass and speed of light square, right? Which is constant square. But do you really understand metaphysics? of E equal mc squared? Of course not. So if you really want to learn, right? Learn. And now you don't have to go to Cambridge. You don't have to go to Oxford. You don't have to go even university. It's all available at YouTube. It's all available at, the reason that I start YouTube TV channel, because there's so much garbage there, and there's no education. There's just full of garbage, mindless entertainment, and you could be mindlessly entertain yourself next 10,000 hours and learn nothing. And I really believe that YouTube channel could be used to be edutainment. Educate yourself while you're being entertained. I hope this is kind of entertaining for you. If you're a thinker, right? And if you're a philosopher and you learn metaphysics somewhere, but that's a new way to learn, right? So the impact on us, on Einstein's discovery, theory of relativity, created GPS. Did you know that? Global Positioning System, right? E equal mc squared, really using the technology to really bring GPS, right? So just learn that and enjoy that. Number 2, learn how to tell whether an object is abstract or concrete, right? Because you could think about abstract stuff, and you have to learn to think through, is it abstract or is it concrete? And then study quantum physics. Wow, not only study physics, but quantum physics. So Einstein recommend metaphysics. Quantum physics is a fantastic field. I learned it through, of course, YouTube, a lot of the channels, and wow, this is mind-boggling, the concept of quantum physics. And then research cosmology and cosmogony. For example, they ask to think about, did the Big Bang Theory ever happen? So the whole concept is did Big Bang Theory, is it concept? Is it abstract? Or is it concrete, right? And what do you do? Right? Well, if you're a scholar, then you find Big Bang Theory at Google. You type Big Bang, guess what? The first image is Big Bang, right? Oh man, that's so sad. Okay, so then you need to go to not Google, right? But Big Bang and sitcom comedy. And so if you're a scholar, you cannot just use Google search, because then you get all this wrong information. You need to go to Google Scholar. And if you didn't know such thing existed as a scholar, shame on you, right? So you must go to Google Scholar and turn that site on, and then put Big Bang Theory, and this is what you're gonna get, okay? Books after books after books. And then you do a little bit of research, and he's the guy who actually first conceptualized Big Bang, right? And basically then you need to stand on the shoulders of the giant, right? So use Google Scholar as much as possible and stand on the shoulders of giant. Any topic, don't rely on Google search. Rely on Google Scholar, go there, type in metaphysics, right? Or type that in Kamai, and guess what? Our class will pop. So stand on the shoulder of the giant, image-wise, you are not the first one to thought about it. For thousands of years, there are any topic that you could think of, there is at least 10,000 copies of books, and so don't argue that you're the innovator of that. No, that would be self-arrogant, that's not, yeah. Anyways, arrogance in Greek is actually auto, what was the word? Anyways, let's go on. I'm sidetracking here. And learn about free will and determinism. Consider whether you believe in determinism or free will. These are the major philosophical things. In theological circle, is it Calvinist or is it Arminian? Do you decide to be saved, or are you saved by determination? Okay, huge question, right? Philosophically also, you need to think through that. And I come up with either or. In my Ph.D, I said epistemology is ontology, 인식론이 존재론이다. So I developed the whole existential epistemology. That's something that I already posted in YouTube. You could take a look. It'll be kind of interesting, And they're saying to talk to pastors or, your religious leader. Talk about that. Study the relationship between metaphysics and religion. Wow, and because it is important. That's just part 1. Part 2, study metaphysics in your free time, and I mean, my gosh, you study it and you talk about it, talk to friends, and follow metaphysical organization. There are a whole bunch of organizations that teach, and subscribe to newsletter of metaphysics, and then attend conferences. I'm pressing on. I realize I'm only at half point, and it's 25 minutes already, and I'm only at half point, so I'm kind of pushing forward. Attend conferences, even in Cambodia. Even place like Cambodia, we got actually philosophical, rooftop philosophy in Phnom Penh, and they talk about metaphysics, metaphilosophy and metaphysics with clouds. And so you could organize, join, and then read primary text. Now, this is a point that I realized that people just constantly in YouTube, that's all the information. That's not gonna cut it. You need to go to the primary source, right? So if you want to read on metaphysics, you must go to Heidegger. And then read that book, because that was one of the requirement book for my class. And then Zen, Brother Karamazov, I and Thou. And then, each book, hopefully, that I'll put on YouTube. If you're interested, go there. Not now, but I'll be posting this soon. Studying metaphysics in guided manner. What does that mean? Go to college. Or go through my series. I think this is going to be like, I don't know, maybe 50 hours, 30 hours of lecture for free of charge, right? So go through each one of them, metaphysics. Like this is just lecture 1. Graduate, and then gain legitimate attending degree, just like me. I got my doctorate, and now I teach at RUPP. And when you're at PhD level, though, never use Wikipedia, WikiHow as a reference in your master thesis. So I taught them through that, but when they were writing master thesis, if you ever quote me on Wikipedia, WikiHow, then it's disqualified. Yeah, that's just academic world. But for you, that's okay, if you're not doing master or PhD. So learning philosophy versus living philosopher. And this is the thing that I told them. I said, hey, there's in England, there are a doghouse that is now sold at $200,000. And I asked them, Mataho chef, what do you think? Right? Mataho chef. And then we had a debate, like, oh, this is not right, $200,000 house. And who are you to tell that it's not right? They got money. They could do whatever they want. And so my position is not telling them what the truth is. I'm a catalyst. I just kind of activate them to think, and they let them fight each other. Like one says, yeah, that's freedom, Oh, really? So freedom is what you could do whatever you want. And then we brought the Cambodian post and talk about issues like, a lot of Cambodian maids got stuck in Saudi Arabia as slaves. What do you think? As a philosopher, not as a student of philosophy, but you're going to be 철인, philosopher. You're going to live as a philosopher. How do you deal with this injustice? What is your position? That's my passion. What is your position? I don't care what position you're in. I want to know why and how you arrive at that position. That's what I'm more interested in. Ever since 91, I've been publishing my article everywhere possible. Korean was the first magazine I started publishing, because I have a position. I am a philosopher. And one word that, and I don't have to be, the issue is not, are you right or wrong? Well, who are you to talk about right and wrong? But do you have a position, right? So that's passionate about that. So learning philosophy versus living philosophy is completely, because the philosophical timeline, as you know, that, oh my goodness, it's just the whole Western-centric view, right? Starting from Plato. The guy started, as a student of Socrates. He just, did it. So what is metaphysics in Cambodia? Google, Google Scholar. Wow, 221,000 result. And a lot of it is just random stuff, right? Elements of metaphysics, but somehow that Cambodia was mentioned. The first book that was kind of legit was Elements of Metaphysics. And in that book, that kind of talk about Cambodia, but that's not really Cambodian metaphysics. So then metaphysics and spirituality, and they talk about this kind of Cambodian metaphysics. The other one talks about Cambodian metaphysics, but the fifth in the Google search was our class, RUPP, Master of Philosophy, right? Our class is the authority in metaphysics in Cambodia. Mataho chef, what do you think, students? And then we got into this debate, and so I said, let's stand in the shoulders of the giants, and metaphysics of Cambodia, right? And then all this result, this is kind of technical, so I'm gonna bypass, right? how to use and cite Google Scholar. Okay, so I'm teaching them now how to cite. For example, when you go to the site, there's a citation, right? Cited 20 times, right? But there's citations 337 times. Which book do you think you should need to use? 20 times cited or 337? Use your mind. 맞다, 허셰프. If you said 20, stop right now, get out. You don't qualify to learn philosophy, right? Okay, you're gonna use a book, and then if you choose to use book that cited 20 times versus 337, something went wrong, right? 맞다, 허셰프. What do you think? Why I'm telling you to do this, right? So you need to use most cited, and then when you actually go to the site and there's a citation, then you click that in Google Scholar. You click that, and it will give you all this different way that you could footnote. So MLL, APA, American Psychology Association, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver. And then I usually use APA for my doctoral thesis because of my thing was from sociology, right? So, and I like it better because it has a date in the front, 1984 in the front, not in the back, like MLL. But anyways, my personal preference. So what is metaphysica or 형이상학, right? Metaphysica is in Greek, right? So metaphysica, a word definition is the word metaphysics derives from the Greek word meta, beyond, upon, after, and physica, physics. It was first used in the title for several of Aristotle's works because they were usually authorized after the works of physics in complete and anthologized, meaning that it was categorized. But actually, it doesn't really mean that after physica, right? Oh, should I go into it? Okay. Ta, meta, ta, physica, right? Biblia. The books that comes after the books on physics, that's what it literally means, right? Metaphysics. Okay, let's skip that because it's really not that important for this audience, okay? So, then we talk about physics. Well, let's talk about physics, right? Where did physics department started? Guess where? Oxford. Oxford University, one of the oldest university in the world. The Department of Physics started at Oxford. And so when I went to Oxford, I studied at Oxford campus, and so I'm not part of the Oxford system. I studied at Middlesex, our campus is at Oxford. Okay? Like some people said that, oh, you disqualify, you say that you're from, I'm not from Oxford. Okay, so I just want to say that here. But when I went there at the campus, the original Clareton Laboratory was where they said, hey, we could talk about all we want in philosophy. Why don't we experiment our philosophy? And the experiment in philosophy department at Oxford became later physics department. So the physicist who thinks like, there's some stupid physicist who says that, oh, I'm not a philosopher. Dunkov. You are a philosopher because physics started as an experimental philosophy, right? So metaphysics is exactly that, right? What is experimental way of looking at physics? Metaphysics. What is metaphysics, right? We ask questions like, is there a God? Can we control our destiny? Do we have immortal souls? How can we know what is real, right? These are the questions that we raise in metaphysics, right? Religion and philosophy, So I actually look up in Korean, and because I speak, read, and write well in Korean. So it's this fantastic edge I have that I could actually type in 형이상학. 형이상학 is Korean way of saying metaphysics. And this lady actually talked about metaphysics in the term of art and to have and not have. This is the metaphysical art piece. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool, right? And Korean scholars' view is about Platonic and is math, and they're approaching from more of the metaphysical from the Plato, and then some people approach from Descartes, right? And so simply put, that there is a debate between Plato and Aristotle. Plato thinks the natural science, it gave a birth to math. Aristotle's view from natural science, Plato belittled of natural science. He gave a birth to higher form of thinking, math. Aristotle observed natural science and separated math and science. So he said, two cannot be one. Wow, I just like, so what do you think? As Socrates said, I cannot teach anyone anything. I can only make them think. I'm trying to make you think. Why are you? Why are you? Why do you live? Right? Are you learning philosophy or are you living philosopher? My challenge for you, this is only first lecture, is to think about that. If you really haven't thought about that, and if you said, oh no, I just want to study philosophy, forget you, then please stop and don't turn on to my lecture too. But if you want to live as a philosopher, and if someone asks you, what do you live? Why do you live? What's the reason for your life? Then I would say, well, I live to live. To me, to live is Christ and to die is gain. I live to serve God. And Jesus is my Lord, and that's whom I'm going to serve, right? That's why I live. So that's why I teach philosophy. Because metaphysics is the only philosophy that now in modern day philosophy department that I could freely talk about existence of God. I could freely talk about creation, and God created something out of nothing. And in Cambodian context, soon, nothing is always something. So is something that is always nothing. So we cannot talk about, so my philosophy student challenged me, sir, I don't have a problem with your God creating the world. We have a problem with the fact that God created something out of nothing when nothing is always something in so on. Wow. See, that's so passionate, man. That's what I want to talk about. So please, if you want to be a philosopher, then continue on. I think this will really help you. Well, for now, Lord bless you. And I pray that you had wonderful time and that you take the journey with me. Amen.